Now, like you, Joe, I've had dear friends, women saying to me, you take it more seriously, understand it more, talk about it more on television. But I just want to answer again from that male perspective, right? Which is that I refuse to believe that there's a dormant inside every man rapist or murderer. I do not believe that to be the case.
You are correct. I, too, take this extremely seriously to the point where I have been very outspoken about the contributing factors to domestic violence, and I have, as you can imagine, and as you perhaps have seen, have been absolutely excoriated by it. Excoriated, ironically, by so-called feminists who hang out with some very questionable gentlemen themselves. I'm going to read you something that comes from the Australian Institute of Criminology. 5 years ago, they put out a groundbreaking report, and it opened with this extraordinary statement. Now, consider the amount of talk about domestic violence and what causes it, and men need to do better. This is how it opened its report. Now, this was a study of, I think, 3,000 records and 300 papers, and it opened it with this comment. To our knowledge, there has been no attempt, not little attempt, not enough attempt, no attempt to develop a comprehensive understanding of what characterises domestic violence offenders and offending across Australia. In other words, what are the driving factors? What are the causes behind it? What are the contributing factors? No attempt. This is 2019. I mean, all the talk up until that point, no attempt. No one's actually tried to pull together the figures. And what they found was that about 2% of men, 2% of repeat offenders were responsible for about half of all incidents. So that's 2% of men responsible for half of incidents. That was from a 2016 study it cited. Another in 2017 Northern Territory study found that 8% of couples accounted for 27% of the harm associated with domestic violence. So again, when you see these statistics and you see these numbers, it is not all men doing it to all women all the time. It is a very small number of men, a very small number of terrible men doing it over and over and over again. Once you're a wife basher, chances are you are always a wife basher. It found that disadvantage was a driving factor. Alcohol was a driving factor. Again, recidivism, repeat offenders, a driving factor. And tragically, it was a much higher, as we know, as anyone who has studied this knows, there is a much higher incidence in Indigenous communities. So there's no point saying, hey, men, just do better. Otherwise, you could just say, hey, everybody, just say no to terrorism.
Yeah.
Hey, kids, don't rob banks.
Yeah.
We know how stupid that is about other serious crimes. If we're going to treat domestic violence like terrorism, as people say we should, well, then treat it like terrorism and don't think that a nice little campaign saying...
In the same way you would say all insert needs to change. Very good point. You'd be quite targeted.